Okay. So we got some updates from the Iran situation. Apparently, Iran has finally responded. They were supposed to respond on Thursday, I think, according to Trump from last week, but they took their time, and they have finally responded, I think, yesterday after I was done streaming. And Trump apparently doesn't like their response because newsflash, their response is exactly what they said they wanted from the very beginning, like from the beginning of this ceasefire. They want, sanctions relief. They want, obviously a full end to the war, including Lebanon. They want a tolling system in the Strait of Hormuz, and they want reparations. So Trump was not very happy about Iran literally just saying the same exact thing they've been saying from the beginning of the war for their conditions for ending it. So, but yeah, so let's go ahead and watch this video. We'll see if we can gauge Trump's response. And this is from Fox News, so I'm sure we'll get a little bit of unhinged Fox News response, which I love. So this is Trump fires back at Iran's response to U.S. proposal. Totally unacceptable. Let's go.
Now to the Middle East, President Trump slamming Iran's latest attempt to end the war, saying the regime has been laughing at our country, but they will be laughing no longer.
Alex Hogan joins us live from Washington with the very latest. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Carlene Todd. So markets reacting to the news this morning. Oil prices surging today. And today, Iran's foreign minister says that it is still serious about negotiations after President Trump rejected Tehran's recent response, writing this on Truth Social. I've just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Totally unacceptable.
Iranian state media today claiming that the response called for compensation for war damages and it would give the Iranians control over the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Wall Street Journal, the deal did not adhere to the administration's demands on uranium enrichment. Quote, the latest response doesn't resolve the U.S. demand for commitments in advance of the fate of Iran's nuclear program and its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Nuclear issues would be negotiated over the next 30 days, they said. Iran proposes to have some of its highly enriched uranium diluted and the rest transferred to a third country, people said.
Okay, so that's that was the stuff that I was like feeling the most confident that they could actually get Iran to agree to. So it sounds like Iran is willing. Okay, this is an interesting new development because when we first got into this war, we were trying to make sense of whether Iran was going to since there's more hardliners in charge now, if they were going to try to break away to a bomb as soon as possible or not. This seems to indicate that I think that they're still following the same sort of playbook that they have been with trying to negotiate with America in relation to the nuclear issue. So it sounds like they are willing to dilute their enriched uranium from 60% back down to 20% or whatever it was under the JCPOA, which, I always figured they would probably, if there was anything that they were going to be willing to do, it would be around the nuclear stuff. And the rest transferred to a third country. That would probably be Russia. I've heard them having discussions with Russia as a potential person to do this, but I don't think they're going to want to transfer too much because it really does, it really does decrease their leverage pretty significantly. So I would guess that they would try to keep the majority of it just in Iran.
President Trump, in an interview released this weekend, addressed the nuclear concerns.
We'll get that at some point, whatever we want. We have it surveilled. I did a thing called Space Force, and they are watching that if somebody walked in, they can tell you his name, his address, the number of his badge. No, we have that very well surveilled. If anybody
Space Force
got near the place, we will.
What's going to be annoying is Space Force is like, now that Space Force is like an actual part of our military or whatever, I'm sure that it's just going to eat up all of my tax dollars as well, just like all the other ones. I know people thought of it as like a joke at first, but a lot of these things, like even if the president isn't very, the president who creates the new department or the new whatever in an administration, whether whether they're a joke or not, like Trump when he created the Space Force and everyone was memeing on it, the actual military industrial complex and like our billionaire overlords, they will inevitably seize on it as an opportunity to funnel ungodly amounts of my tax dollars into as a tool of imperialism or as a tool of subjugation against the American people or whatever. So as annoying as it is that Trump was the one who created the Space Force, eventually it is going to be just merged into the blob of moneyed interests that all of our tax dollars go to, and it'll become it'll be liberalized and it'll be institutionalized, and eventually people will be like, how dare you make fun of the Space Force or whatever, which is that'll be a great day, won't it, folks?
Know about it, and we'll blow them up.
President Trump also reportedly spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, who doubled down that the war with Iran is not over.
Because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. They're ballistic.
What the fuck are you going to do about it, Benjamin Netanyahu? What are you going to do about it, bitch? Can't do shit about it.
Missiles that
he couldn't even defeat Hamas, dude. Hamas was like 20,000 strong when they started or whatever, or maybe it was like 40,000. I can't remember, somewhere around that range. Now it's like 60,000 strong. And they were unable to defeat the Palestinian resistance in Gaza in a tiny little a tiny little section of land that they completely and totally militarily control and dominate. They were unable to defeat them there. They're unable to defeat Hezbollah. They're unable, obviously, to be able to defeat Iran. America isn't even capable of defeating Iran. So, what the fuck are you gonna do? Like, seriously. Man, Netanyahu, he is the Satan incarnate, Satan himself, as I like to call him.
They still want to produce,
but at least he's stupid. Like if he actually believes that like this sort of stuff is that it's possible to be done. It's not possible. Sorry, buddy.
Netanyahu went on to say in that interview that he wants Israel to reduce U.S. military support from $3.8 billion a year to zero in the future.
Never going to happen.
Alex Hogan, thank you.
Okay, I say it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I mean, if it did happen, Israel would be unable to sustain itself as it is right now. Israel is definitely not able to sustain itself in terms of like going to war with every country around it without American military support, 100%. But not only that, Israel would literally be unable to just sustain its standard everyday apartheid in the West Bank, or its constant mowing the lawn strategy or whatever of the Palestinians in Gaza. Like, they wouldn't be able to support even that without American monetary and political and military support. So it's not possible. It's not going to happen. Also, all of the economy in Israel is getting shittier and shittier by the day. I mean, I don't really talk about it that much because in general, as long as America is propping up the economy, it's never going to collapse. But like, it is getting worse for the average Israeli. Like the average Israeli's cost of living is going higher and higher as they pump all of their money into defense and none of it into stimulus or none of it into, like welfare programs or whatever, right? Like, and that's only going to get worse and worse. If America cut off its funding, then that would be even worse than it is now. People would, their lives would continue getting worse and worse, and it would inevitably lead to more and more contradictions in society, which would then inevitably lead to, backlashes against the government, potentially new actual non-Zionist groups, being able to take some form of power or something. Eventually it would just sort of collapse in on itself. It wouldn't be able to sustain itself if America stopped funding it. So that's wishful thinking. Netanyahu, it's impossible. Like, they love to pretend like Israel is some some behemoth country that is able to do whatever it wants just through sheer strength of will or whatever. And it's like, no, or like, well, not even strength of will, strength of like racist fervor. Like that's what they think, like with enough racist fervor they will be able to do whatever they want. I know another country who thought that exact same way. Their name was Germany. And like during World War II, they also had an incredible amount of racist fervor, and they thought that they could get away with doing whatever they wanted, or they would be able to do whatever they want just on a hope and a dream of their like their willpower through their racism would get them through the end of the day or whatever. And it didn't work out. So I don't think it'll work out for them either in Israel.
Still ahead, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matt Whitaker joins us as the Trump administration pushes to strike a deal with Iran.
President Trump preparing for a high-stakes summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing later this week, with the war in Iran set to be one of the major topics of discussion. The Wall Street Journal writing that the Iran war is hanging over the summit, adding, quote, Xi...
Well, I had another video about the Trump-Xi meeting, but if this one covers it enough, then this will be, I'll just leave it with this.
Also wants the fight to stop as Middle East turmoil restricts Iran's oil supply and shrinks country's ability to buy Chinese goods. And U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, has this to say about China's relationship with Iran.
As it pertains to Iran, the blockade is stopping all shipping coming out, including of Iran's illegal oil that China was purchasing. Yes, they've had reserves. But
I think there's still some. I think there's still some being shipped, to be honest. I do think that they can spoof data. I think that they can, or like the location data of the ships. I think that they can ship through shadow fleets or whatever. Like, I think there's some still being shipped. And then there's also obviously land routes that that Iran can utilize in order to now I don't know if how much of it would be going to China. I would assume still a significant portion, if they are shipping anything, still a significant portion is going to China. But for those unaware, China, Iran's oil makes up about 10% of Chinese energy, which is, a significant portion, but it's not the end of the world. And if they're still shipping, parts of it, then, it's not going to be that big of a deal to China. It's more of a bigger deal to Iran if they can't get that oil out to them. But considering how they're not really having any problems with like overcapacity in their refineries or anything so far, I think that they're still shipping some oil.
But we've also seen the Chinese economy faltering as a result of energy prices, not only from Iran, but also Venezuela, that have changed dramatically since President Trump took these actions.
Okay, sorry. I know I pause a lot, but I'm a yip yapper. You know that. That's why you watch me. So the China is they've been claiming China's going to collapse in on itself for like 30 years now, and China has just gotten stronger and stronger every single time. This is Western capitalists trying to analyze a system of government that is not pure capitalism, and they don't understand the amount of power and structure and governing capability that the Chinese government has over their industries. And we'll be able to. They'll be fine. They're gonna be fine. Okay, people, don't buy into this. There is very little to no pressure on the Chinese government when it comes to this energy situation. There's much more pressure, at least, on the entire world economy than there is on China.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, joins me now. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. So it does look like it's back to the drawing board when it comes to Iran. The president writing on Truth Social yesterday, I have just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. I don't like it. Totally unacceptable. What do next steps look like?
Well, next steps are certainly to continue to negotiate. President Trump is a deal maker. He's a peacemaker. He certainly has all options at his disposal, including using our awesome military if that's necessary. But really, all military objectives have been completed by the United States.
There's nothing left to bomb. There's nothing left to bomb, people. It would be... nothing would change if they decided to go back into the war. I've talked about it a million times. We were able to we were able to sustain war for 6 weeks, and we went through 50% of our missiles. That means we have a grand total of 12 weeks of war that we are capable of against a middle power like Iran. So if they can, I'm pretty sure that they could last another 6 weeks if we decided to go back to war with them.
In a much different situation from 9 weeks ago, where Iran was menacing not only its neighbors, but with what we found out, their capabilities of their missile program, really the world, including those that could reach here in Europe. And so, President Trump has dramatically changed that situation for the better, and he's going to get the best deal for the American people. And ultimately, this recent proposal from the Iranians wasn't acceptable.
The best deal for the American people would be if he said, we're going home. We're done. All of our stuff, we're moving out. Iran, we're done. You win. That would be the best deal, I think, for the American people. Because I wouldn't have filled up my car the other day. It was $60. My car is not that big. My car is like a full size, sedan or whatever, just like a standard car. It's a Ford Fusion, I guess, whatever type of car that is, and it was $60 to fill it up. So I would prefer if we just ended the blockade and just went home and said, Iran, you win. That would be the best thing for me, at least personally.
But President Trump and his team, we're going to continue working on this until we get exactly what we want, which is to make sure that Iran's nuclear ambitions are over and to make sure that they can peacefully coexist in the Middle East with their neighbors.
Yeah, the president has made clear that the U.S. has won this war militarily, but less clear is just how long Iran can withstand our blockade of their ports, with some estimates including...
No, it's perfectly clear. I've told you already. Indefinitely. They can last indefinitely. 100%. They could last 10 years. If we wanted to blockade them, if we could afford to blockade them for 10 years, they would be able to last 10 years. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We've been saying that they are going to collapse under the weight of sanctions for like 20 years at this point, and they haven't. So, I mean, with a brief hiatus with the JCPOA or whatever, but you know what I mean. So yeah, they can last indefinitely with this blockade. America cannot.
One U.S. intelligence analysis saying Tehran could withstand a blockade for months. So with that in mind, how much leverage do we have over Iran?
Indefinitely they could.
Right now, when it comes to getting them back to the negotiating table?
The United States has tremendous leverage. And while I'm not going to comment about alleged intelligence products, what I can tell you is that every single day it gets harder and harder for Iran to pay its soldiers, to continue its economy, to continue what they're trying to do, which is to wait us out. And obviously the president is resolved to win this situation for the American people. And by winning, I mean by getting a deal that accomplishes his goals, opens up the Strait of Hormuz, eliminates and ends their nuclear ambition, and all of the other things that he has proposed in the negotiations. And so, President Trump holds all the cards, will continue to hold those cards until he gets the deal that's necessary for the American people. And quite frankly, the world's a better place because of that.
Okay.
Do you buy it, people? Do you buy it? The more times they say it, do you buy it more and more? That's what they're hoping. They're hoping if they just say it over and over again, that Trump holds all the cards. Trump holds all the cards. Trump holds all the cards. They're like Hypnotoad. They're just telling you over and over and over again. And as long as they keep saying it, maybe one day people will buy it.
Let's talk about NATO, because you recently said that it's currently going through a factory reset, going back to its war-fighting roots, NATO 3.0. What does all of that mean in practice?
Ultimately, it's about returning to its war-fighting roots, to have allies that are capable. I think one of the frustrating things for President Trump and us in this administration is our allies cannot send significant war-fighting ships to help in the Strait of Hormuz. They just don't have those assets.
Yeah, because that wasn't the deal. That wasn't the deal. The deal of NATO was that all of these European countries and various other countries would vassalize themselves to the United States and do whatever the fuck the United States wanted. And in exchange, the United States would protect them and would protect international waters for them so that they could engage in commerce, international commerce, over the seas without interruption, right? Like that was the whole deal of NATO. There was never a part where these countries were supposed to actually cover their defense or whatever. Like they weren't ever supposed to defend themselves. Actually, in fact, a part of the vassalization process was to make them essentially destitute and like they need America to protect them. And that was a part of our plan as well, so that we would then be able to use them for diplomatic support. So I didn't know being Mem says, I didn't know being an ally meant you do anything for each other, no questions asked. Yeah, I mean, I think these people, they want to so as America enters into this new era of like abandoning soft power in its entirety, they're starting to they're starting to get mad at like the institutions that America themselves created and the way that they created them, and they're starting to abandon, like they're no longer recognizing the benefit that America got from those institutions. And so when they're getting mad at NATO like not defending themselves, it's like that wasn't the reason for NATO. They were never meant to actually be able to defend themselves. They were meant to vassalize themselves. So, I don't think anything's going to change about that either. I think that NATO is probably going to end up, I think at this point, NATO is basically already over. Like if some country did decide to invade a NATO country, like I don't know if America would even go protect that country or be capable of protecting that country at this point, which in effect just means that NATO is basically dead. It's just kind of like a zombie at this point. Like it still exists, but it's not really alive or not able to function. America is very emotionally immature, to be honest. I agree. Also, the people in charge of it are also very emotionally immature.
Assets. They are moving quickly to try to replace the assets that they had let deteriorate. But right now, it is a one-way street, and the United States of America delivers for our allies, and we're expecting our allies to deliver for the United States, and they have to show up, and they have to be capable, and they have to invest the money. And what we accomplished last year in The Hague by getting the 5% political agreement now has to turn into real capabilities, things like ships and tanks and air defense systems. And those are the kind of issues that right now we are pushing our allies hard to get that done. And we're going to have a big summit in Ankara, Turkey.
What they want now is they want the allies, quote unquote allies, to buy all of that stuff from America is what they want. They don't, I don't even think they really want them producing it themselves, because that would then, like I said, lead to they're no longer really needing America to protect them from big bad Russia or whoever they're scared of, this week. So I would argue that it would actually be better for them to start producing some of their weapons and stuff domestically or locally and form more blocks of power and cooperation. And even, if you want to have like NATO style, like a European sort of NATO thing where they're all like regionally in a block and they will protect each other in that regard or something. I think that would be better than the current way that NATO is formulated as a protection racket for America.
Summer, where we're going to get a report card on what our allies have done, and we're expecting
get ready for that report
significant investments from last year in The Hague.
Yeah, where do you think our European allies and European countries stand when it comes to this vision?
Yeah, I think in the last year they've spent $100 or $200 billion more than they had, all because of President Trump and what he's done to rejuvenate this alliance and to bring strength finally to this alliance. And the commitment.
I don't know if that's exactly it. I think that I think that it's more that they are. My guess is the reason that they start spending so much more money on defense is more because they are worried that America is incapable of defending them, and so they're like, oh, okay. we can't just rely on America anymore. We need to actually be able to somewhat defend ourselves or whatever. So that's kind of why I think that happened. I don't think it's because they're all, worshiping at the altar of Trump, and Trump just was able to, smooth talk them all into doing this. I think that this is more, it's for the lobsters. Yeah, exactly.
Commitments are there politically, but it's the year over year, the hard work. And so I'm expecting this year we're going to see another more than $100 billion. But remember, President Trump has proposed a defense budget for the United States of America of $1.5 trillion. So while $100 billion is a lot of money, we need our allies to continue to move at pace, to continue to spend the money and turn it into real.
Come on, European countries, why don't you just turn your economy into like America's economy, where the only job that you can have where you're not like a fucking Uber driver or like a minimum wage McDonald's employee is to go work for the State Department and figure out more efficient ways of killing brown people. Like, why don't you just transform your economies into our economy? I'm sure all of them look at our economy and they just long for a $1.5 trillion defense budget that is, that sucks up all of our tax dollars and then produces like jack shit throughout the entire, like I said, they can produce like 20 missiles a year. You say also, how do we spend so much but then only have enough missiles for a few weeks? That's a great question. Mem. Here, let me do this. Oh, and okay, I might have to, let me see if I can fix this real quick. Sorry. This is the first time I've used this with chat, so I don't know how, okay, we'll just do it like that for now. Maybe I can do this. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's a great question, Mem. So we spend $1.5 trillion. What usually happens is like most of that money just gets siphoned off to the people who create the contracts, all the bureaucracy, all of that sort of stuff. So what they usually do is it all just goes to the Pentagon. The Pentagon, by the way, hasn't passed an audit in years. I don't, have they ever passed an audit? I actually don't know if they've ever passed an audit. And half of the money is unaccounted for. So it all goes into extremely inefficient, like super hyper technical projects like the F-35, which was like a $1 trillion project in and of itself, that Iran's like duct tape and bubblegum air defenses were able to nick one of them. So it's like we just pump all of this money into these huge contracts, and most of it, I think, just gets siphoned off into the pockets of our elites. I don't think it actually goes into actual productive capabilities. I don't think our system of government is even capable of like I say, our system of government under like private capital for like our military industrial complex is not even capable of producing the weapons of war, like the tools of death that that our pedo billionaires even want to use on all of these brown countries at this point. Like it's kind of like it's very ironic in a way how like it's in like all of like we hyper capitalize and hyper financialize everything so much to the point that we're not even able to do the imperial, our imperial misadventures in the Middle East that we the same elites want to do. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of what's going on there. But yeah, you say about the audits too. Yeah, I think a lot of people know about that at this point. But yeah, about half of the money is completely unaccounted for, which means it's probably, like I said, in these contracts, it's just a bunch of bureaucrats just like siphoning it off the top, is the way that I see it. If we ever want to be able to compete like as an actual military power in the future, we would have to have the government take ownership of those like private industries that produce our tools of death. But I don't necessarily, I would prefer them to be owned and operated by the government just so that there was more accountability. But I don't personally want us to be spending all of our money on these tools of death. They're worse at managing money than you were with unmedicated ADHD. You're not wrong. The scale, the sheer scale that they're doing it is pretty wild. But okay, let's go ahead and move on.